Support Narrative's independent journalism at patreon.com/narrative and check out our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe and download. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Narrative Live on a Friday night. It's the after show, my favorite time of the week, because there's never any news to talk about. We just sort of get to chat about whatever we want for a full hour. I wish that were the case, but it definitely is not on this week. There's so much news, I can't even remember what happened this week. Hello to the panel today. LB is on the phone today. Hi, LB. Nice to hear you. Who can't see you? And that's not Eric. And that's not Eric Garland you see up there. That's Jean Guerrero, the author of the book Hatemonger about Stephen Miller. And I'll correct the graphics there in a second. Greg Olear is here, and so is Eric Garland. Hey, guys. How's everybody's week been?
Intense.
Yeah, it's been tough. So let's talk about today, because today has been spectacularly busy in terms of news. We have the President of the United States now at Walter Reed, where he was transported in kind of spectacular style on this helicopter, along with his chief of staff and various other insiders with him on that helicopter. Sun was setting. It looked like a Mark Burnett production to me, but I'm not saying that anything is, untowards here. I think we're seeing a genuine first in American history, where the President of the United States has contracted an so far incurable virus. And he's in a very, very difficult position because he is in a high-risk group. Let's get the historical context first, I guess, from Greg. What do you think about how this fits into our historical world, modern history of America? And then we can get your feelings about how you feel about him having put us through all of this.
I mean, the whole thing is, I don't know about the historical feel. This has been an intense and crazy and ultimately sad day for the country, because I woke up at 5 o'clock and was immediately told by my wife and son that, Trump had tested positive for COVID, as had the First Lady. And like probably everyone on our side, the first response is, okay, is it true or not? Because you can't believe anything that these people say. And then you feel like a jerk for not believing something like that. And, I go online and I try to look at the clues, and yeah, it seems legit. I mean, there's too many things that suggest that it's true. And then during the course of the day, more and more people test positive for COVID or announce that they've tested positive. We already knew that Hope Hicks was positive for it. And we only knew that because Jennifer Jacobs at Bloomberg broke the story. Otherwise, they never would have told us. Apparently, then it was found out that the Amy Coney Barrett ceremony that they had over the weekend was the spreader event. So you have Ronna Romney McDaniel sick, the head of the RNC. You have Senator Mike Lee from Utah. You have possibly other people that I'm forgetting about. Everybody is in question. And there was this horrible moment when I'm worried about Biden, honestly. As soon as that debate started, I said, please, God, don't let them shake hands. Don't shake hands with this guy. And I was so glad when Chris Wallace said that they weren't going to do that. And I felt like a big, black cloud over me until I got the news that Biden had tested negative, even though him testing negative today doesn't mean he won't test positive tomorrow. It's as I understand it, it's not necessarily an out of the woods thing. And then now Trump is now, he films this weird video, which maybe was filmed today, maybe it was filmed 2 days ago, who knows? And I apparently walks under his own power to the helicopter, which is placed far away, behind trees, so nobody can really get a good look at it. And as we know, the medical facilities at the White House are really, really good. So why are they bringing him to Walter Reed unless something is serious or they're really anticipating something serious? Meanwhile, they say his symptoms are mild. And he did talk, he did walk. So who knows? I don't know what to believe. I don't think anybody knows what to believe. But this is a sad day for the country, for me, because we knew something like this was going to happen, because you can't have grifting incompetence running the federal government for 4 years and not have it end catastrophically. And I'm sad and I'm angry at the Republicans for allowing this to fester the way that it has. And, we're a laughing stock of the world right now. And it's embarrassing and sad. And that's the only way I can feel. I know people are happy about it. I'm not happy about it. I just feel.
Yeah, you can't be happy about this. I mean, no one should ever expect anyone to want anyone to be sick. And I shared your real fear this morning that something might be amiss with Biden, because it took about 4 hours, to get the results out from when he might have been up early in the morning and had time to have a test or maybe two. The announcement that he was negative only came out at around noon, which was so late compared to everybody else. You assume he has doctors traveling with him. But at that point, we'd already heard that Trump himself had tested positive, that Melania had, Hope Hicks had, and Lee had. So it was certainly looking like there was a super spreader event, if you want, or a lot more than just a couple of people. And then all those people at the bottom there are negative, which I think is also interesting, because some of them were traveling with the president in Air Force One back and forth for the last few days. So why is it only Hope Hicks out of the entire entourage that is positive? I mean, we're glad that it's only that, but still, it's interesting that so far it seems like it's pretty limited in its spread. Eric, where were you when you heard the news, and what did you immediately think?
Well, I was on an internet connection, separated from the rest of the human race in a safe way, or maybe it's just my personality. I'm trying to wall off from folks, but for public safety, all of that. And I don't want to go into conspiracy theory, but it's funny mentioning that you can't really believe what these people are saying. Right. And there's been so much propaganda, so many outright lies, all of the sudden believing a trickle like this. You got to have a lot of doubt at this point. I will say, we have a month left before the Russian agents are going to be stripped out of the White House, because I don't think there's a particularly good chance that Trump is going to prevail over Biden with everything that we're learning and we're going to learn in the next few weeks. We're in a very delicate dance, because this country has over 10,000 active nuclear warheads. We got 6 aircraft carriers, submarines, etc., and so on, as well as the world's financial system. We've gotten ourselves in a real tough spot the last 4 years with these people allowed to dig in and, sabotage different functions in the United States. And to swap that out in this manner as we find out that the Trump administration itself has been trying to make the very election that would finally legally get rid of this traitor, not by a deep state coup, but by the will of the people, that they've been trying to make that illegitimate, just like they were in 2016, only this time they didn't have Obama as president. They had the reins of power themselves. So you can put Louis DeJoy in at the U.S. Postal Service and have him just rip up infrastructure that we all paid for, with the sole and unique purpose of making the one thing that would get rid of Trump legally, and not indicting him, getting him out that way, but just the will of the people. This was, we were there for it. We thereby sanctified the 2016 election. Yeah, there was propaganda, there was tomfoolery, but you know what? That's how it turned out, and this is how this turned out. They have been stopping our ability to do that, and we haven't learned the total degree. We're now seeing the governors step up, and Governor Abbott in Texas, yanking down dozens of places where you could vote. Oh, we just need one place to vote, something. I mean, it's just so very obvious what they're doing. It's very clear that the whole world hinges on how we get this guy out of office.
Oh, for sure.
So we're in a delicate dance right now. And so, I look very carefully at every piece of news that's coming out and go, what does that mean for us right now? And right now I go, might we end up with President Pelosi, at least for some period of time, if these people who were so cavalier about health policy end up being unable to exercise their jobs? She's number 3 in line. I guess we'll find out.
She certainly is taking precautions now to make sure she's well, but she doesn't view it as a real possibility anytime in the near future. But who knows what will happen? 2020 has been the year of anything goes. Jean, what about you? Where were you, and what's your initial reaction to this?
Well, I just found out, late at night as I was heading to bed, and my initial reaction was just obviously, what a lot of people were thinking about how, this is what happens when you're downplaying this grave public health threat. And as recently as the debates downplaying the importance of taking safety precautions like wearing masks. And, it's also what happens when the person that you rely on most for advice when it comes to Homeland Security issues is Stephen Miller, a person who is an extremist, as I document in my book, a person who came into this position with no prior policy experience, no prior national security experience, and who turned the Department of Homeland Security into the political weapon that it is today, rather than focusing on all of the threats that Americans face, all of the things that the Department of Homeland Security is supposed to protect Americans from, cyber warfare, domestic terrorism and pandemics. He narrowed it into something that was very much focused on the immigration issue. And now this year, the Black Lives Matter issue, trying to conflate anti-racist protesters with some kind of grave threat to the American people, when in fact the threat was, the pandemic, and also coming as well from right-wing extremism, which you see the president breathing life into. So they've been playing with fire for a long time, and seeing that the president is suffering the consequences of this himself is not a surprise. And you just have to hope that it serves as a wake-up call to his administration and to his followers that this is a pandemic that, everybody is vulnerable to it, regardless of whether you think it's real or not. And we all need to take it seriously. And hopefully this will, encourage the administration to take the advice of Homeland Security and public health officials a lot more seriously, rather than focusing on individuals like Stephen Miller, who are all about politics, all about creating spectacles of demonization to distract from the crisis that is the Trump administration.
I thought about you a lot on the debate night, which seems like about a year ago, but it was only, what was it, Tuesday night or was it Wednesday night? I can't remember. But the when he was bringing up the Proud Boys and he said, stand down and stand by, or whatever expression he used, and you could feel that all the extremists that I follow online, or the extremist researchers that I follow online, were saying that the people that they know took that as a real thumbs up, as a get ready to go. And I was thinking about you and your stories about how Stephen Miller got so radicalized, and how these Proud Boys probably have been through the same kind of extremism, radicalization that's been happening online to them. What did you think when you heard that?
Well, I just automatically thought, that this is the influence that Stephen Miller has had over Trump, helping to radicalize Trump and helping him to believe that inciting white fear and white hatred and these far right militia groups is a winning strategy. Trump believes that he won the election in 2016 because of Stephen Miller's mastery over how to incite white fear. Then it was using the immigration issue. Now, as I said, they're using these anti-racist protests and dog whistling to groups like the Proud Boys to further incite chaos in the streets, which they can use as a campaign strategy to enhance this law and order theme that that the president has been using. The Proud Boys, they're a far right organization who many of whom have expressed views sympathetic to white nationalism and white supremacists, who, when you look at the Department of Homeland Security's own data, they represent the gravest threat to America when it comes to extremist related attacks. A great majority of extremist related plots and attacks are tied to right-wing and white supremacist extremists like the Proud Boys, who are in Portland, really sort of stirring things up and provoking conflicts with anti-racist protesters.
Which is another reason you can't really believe what Trump does or says, because he is involved in instigating all these things that he then tries to come in and rescue. LB, tell us about your story of learning about this, and I know we were on the phone pretty early, so it's been a process today to really try and figure out whether this has been a real event that we can believe.
Oh, well, I mean, I saw it last night right before I nodded off, and so my phone was, as all of our phones were, just sort of blowing up, and oh my God. And then got up this morning and was sort of looking at it. My first reaction was no, I don't believe it. I'm going to be honest, simply because we don't get any truth or facts. Everything is a charade. Everything's kabuki. Everything's about trying to own the news cycle. He was, it's binging off what Jean was just talking about. He really was on the hook in a bad way for his slip up with the Proud Boys. He knows exactly who they are. He knows Gavin McInnes.
Of course.
This is ridiculous. He's not even an American. He's Canadian.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a ridiculous.
That
whole. Oh, those naughty Canadians. But my point being, all of that is an orchestration as well, and so it's difficult. And then looking at it, absorbing it all day, and sort of seeing, okay, well, this is, if it's not real, it's quite an operation. Like you now have Walter Reed, you have doctors involved. It's quite a wag the dog moment to try to pull this off as if this guy didn't test positive. So let's say he has it. Now I think we have to really think about this. And what was really coming on me lately, kind of washing over my thoughts, was where does this leave us, right? And how could this have happened with the president of the United States? I know he's been putting out his disinformation intentionally from day one. He's always known how deadly it is. He always has known it's airborne before they would even tell us that it was. He's known all of these things. He does take care with his health. He does have the Secret Service around him. Yeah, there are irresponsible fools, and he's a fool as well. But you don't mess around with the health of the president of the United States. As incompetent as this whole administration is, there are people and processes in there that are about protecting the president. So then you think, okay, this is actually what we were warned about with the opening up, with the schools opening up, with this whole thing that was sort of decided in early to mid-August. It just was decided, okay, we're done with trying to, there was no plan to address it. Let's we're just going to go on with life as normal, right? And everything's going to go back to normal. I mean, and we're just going to go. We just got to live through this, everybody. We're just going to do it. And so that sort of mindset and that decision, we were warned by October, it's going to really get bad. It got bad with the president of the United States. It got to him. So then I start thinking about, holy shit, how many more Americans are going to die? How many more Americans are going to die? I think for me, that's the takeaway of this, of if this being real, this just isn't, it's a thermometer that if it got to the president, just think of the hundreds of thousands of Americans that are going to die now because of just the constant fumbling and the irresponsible mismanagement of this whole thing and the intentional infliction of harm. This is mass death like we have just never seen, and it is coming for us. So that is the place I'm at right now. I'm very concerned for my fellow Americans. I always have been, and I am really worried for us right now. Now, I'm also worried. Look, all these radicals, these guys, these extremists, they all start as actors, right? They're around Donald and around Roger Stone, right? Like Gavin McInnes. But they need a guy, right? They need their avatar to be around to sort of say, we're fighting for Donald, we're fighting for Trump. If I don't want him to die in office either, Greg. I want for all kinds of reasons, I want the president to survive this. I don't want him to die president. I want him stripped of that. title. I
Yeah.
want him to face justice, all that stuff, but also I don't wish harm on anybody. But if he were to die, then all of that stuff, it truly is, you guys, it just dissipates. There's no, what are they going to rally around Mike Pence? I mean, so that's gone, right? And it's dark to think this way, but we're now forced into these extremes. That's been the whole goal of this administration and the bad actors behind them, who Eric was pointing out, is to force this nation to crack us in half and force us into these extreme ends. And the extreme ends now that we're facing is, okay, Trump survives the virus. He's going to come out with his fist pumping and probably spew some conspiracy, which is already getting floated now by all of his operative of, it's the deep state that did it to me, or the Democrats did this to me, or spew some horrible conspiracy that's going to inflame everything even bigger. With it also inside of there, he still gets to hang on to this Christ-like stuff that they've been pumping up for him of being the chosen one. Oh, he survived. He's godlike. Right? So that's coming for us if he survives. And if he doesn't survive this, then the whole thing sort of, it really does fall flat. I mean, it just, then we're in that space. I mean,
Well, it doesn't survive us. It's
it doesn't survive. We're now in that extreme. It's literally the life and death of the presidency is forcing our nation into these two extreme outcomes depending on what happens.
Now, do you want to advertise on Narrative Live? Well, we have partnered with AdvertiseCast to handle our advertising and sponsorship requests. They're great to work with, and they'll help you advertise on our show. Please email sales@advertisecast.com or visit our show notes page. You'll find that in your podcast player where we describe what's on this week's show. Is that all we have is this one statement, really? I mean, we have his tweets, we have her tweets, and, say we're going to survive this together. There's already some sort of theme that they are bridging between those two. And then we have, the chief of staff came out, sure, but he wasn't even wearing a mask, didn't look that concerned. And he was Mark Meadows, and he gave a press conference that was fine, It didn't seem like he was that concerned about what was going on. And all we have is this press release that, I forget her name now, the press secretary, Kaylee puts out this press release, which, sure, it says that, he's tested positive and he's feeling all these symptoms. But that's not the kind of thing, in the years that I've covered television news and radio news, for that matter, when something happens to the leader of a state, things happen in a very different kind of fashion. We normally see first you see the doctors come out, you see the spokespeople, but then you see the doctors and they come and explain to people exactly what's wrong. It took 12 hours or something, even longer, for this statement to come out today. And then we still haven't seen a doctor. All we've seen is the president of the United States on a Twitter feed saying, hey, I'm going to be okay, and I'm heading over to Walter Reed. And I believe that you have to take these facts as facts because it's still what's going on in front of our very eyes. But we are relying on the word of a White House that is known to be bold-faced liars about absolutely everything. So how are we to know whether this is real or not? I mean, I'll take their word for it now because what else can we do? But isn't it unusual to you guys? Do you find it as strange as I do that we've just not seen real doctors out there saying, hey, this is what our president is going through right now. This is why we're transporting him to Walter Reed.
The flip side of that is that he doesn't want the real doctors because he's worse than they're letting on. I mean, that would be the reason why. When I woke up this morning and heard that he and Melania had tested positive, okay. But once all these other people that were around them have tested positive, the president, or the former president of Notre Dame, who was at that event, Senator Mike Lee, they're not, all those people are not faking. And I think LB's point was a good one, that the Secret Service is not going to, the Secret Service, I don't think would allow him to fake this, and it brings up, so I'm looking at the comments, and people had asked a while ago about the, remember we were on live when Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed, when news of that came out, and they wanted to try to ram the new judge through. And, we don't know what's going to happen. I tweeted last week that Mitch McConnell was like an elite quarterback running a 2-minute drill, and probably he would score and they would win, but we don't know that. And this has really thrown this out of whack. I don't think that they're going to be able to get her through before the election. I think they first of all, she's going to have to quarantine herself, since she, from what we can tell, A, has had COVID, and B, is near everybody that has caught it. So for all we know, she's the spreader. I mean, and if people on the committee have it, they also have to quarantine. That's 2 weeks that are just shot. So anybody people that were, they're running out of time. Can they do it after the election? Sure. But before the election, I don't think they're going to have time to do it. There's so many ripple effects of this, but the most obvious one is that, especially because, again, her visit to the White House seems to be the event that sparked this from into happening. One more point to make before it floats out of my brain, and I think we're all going to want to comment on this anyway, is that they did not tell the Biden people that this was happening. They didn't say anything about Hope Hicks. They showed up there late, according to Chris Wallace. They were on the honor system about COVID testing. None of them were wearing masks. That alone is impeachable. I mean, how is that any different from like having AIDS and sleeping with people unprotected and not telling them about it? It's no different,
Which is a felony, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So I think all of those people should be that right there is impeachable. It's unconscionable that they would do that. And the Secret Service fucked up big time too, because they should have known, and Biden should have been informed. That should not have happened. Biden should not have been in that room. Period.
Well, it feels like Trump did not follow the rules. It feels like he didn't actually have
a
real test. No way. But he didn't have a test going in with the doctors that he was meant to have. And then his family, this whole brood of people show up, and there's a picture of them here. I don't know, it's just positive there, and I apologize for that. It just came from a different graphic. But you see his kids are all there without masks, right in front of the president and the other candidates, and they're just sitting there, breathing out air. There could be, but it's mostly proven now that they're all negative. But it could have been COVID aerosolized fragments, whatever you would call them. I mean, that seems to me like an astonishingly selfish act. You had all of them show up with no protection at all. And then on the other side, you had the Biden camp who were following protocol, listening to the rules, and these guys were just flouting it completely. Just completely, just makes you so angry.
Except for Melania, who was wearing a mask, which probably means that was the fake Melania or whatever. That was the first thing I thought when I saw it. Oh, probably
on her way
some,
in, she did, yeah. I think she took it off when she got inside. So
I'm just kidding. I don't really think it's the fake Melania, but I did notice that she was wearing one. But probably because she knew she was sick.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah.
Now, Eric, you've got some news around Eric Trump and some other things.
Well, apparently Eric Trump is now scheduled to testify under oath. He's not going to argue with the New York investigators for all that fraud stuff, and he's going to be doing it by video on Monday.
Oh, interesting.
That's good, though, because they want their top guy, testifying first. I'm sure Eric won't screw this up at all. The fullest confidence.
For a minute there, he came out of the closet, I thought, this last week, and then it turned out that wasn't really.
That was so weird, Zeb.
It's so
I know.
strange. The whole thing is.
He broke so many hearts.
Such a heart.
You could take that both ways too. It's like, no, we don't want you.
We still don't know. He still hasn't clarified it. Maybe he'll clarify it on the stand.
Oh, he doesn't understand anything. He just needs his Twizzlers.
He probably does. Poor guy.
He really does.
Halloween is coming for him, and he'll be fine. He'll get his candy.
This is the New York State case, right? This is not the Cyrus Vance case. This is the New York State case, which is about his charity, the cancer charity.
And they wanted to push that until after the election, and something's changed in the last week or so. Apparently, he's amenable to meeting with investigators. Who knows?
There is a lot to distract from. I will say, again, I know I'm leading into the conspiratorial side, and I don't think this is a conspiracy, but there is a lot for them to distract from, and they've been pretty good at distracting up to now. I mean, that tape of Melania talking to her friend, which aired last night on CNN.
I'm working like my ass off. I know. Christmas stuff that, who gives a about Christmas stuff and decoration, but
it's just remarkable as a little Christmas card if anyone wants it. I'll make it a digital download.
Actually, I kind of would buy those. But, there's a market for the first time they turn a profit on something.
Because this is when she did this particularly interesting design for the Christmas trees when she was like complaining about having to do this, is when she created this, bloodied scene out of, Nightmare on Elm Street or whatever it's from. So, she's
I haven't heard it. The audio says "fuck Christmas." Is that
she
it?
basically says she fucks Christmas because she wants to. She's complaining. I wish I could remember the actual tape, but
fuck puppies and grandmothers, and I hate luggage that shows up when you fly someplace, and fuck breakfast cereal and fuck Christmas. She's awesome.
Because she's got to do these Christmas trees and she's got to do these Christmas decorations, and at the same time, fuck the kids, because she also had to try and get them to really, reunited with their parents, and it's it's just this endless parade of just selfishness that you just see, and I don't, if you're going to try to distract from something, that would be something to try and distract from, and maybe they were doing that.
I'm sorry. No, I would argue that the Melania tape is the distraction. Who gives a shit about her? I've said this, she's the most boring person in this entire thing. The less said about her, the better. Honestly, there's all the other people are the ones that are doing the real crimes. I mean, is she a Russian handler or something? Maybe, but she's working for them. She's one of them. She always was. Let's focus on the people that matter, that are really criming, like Stephen Miller.
Yeah.
Can we talk about Parscale? Can we talk about Parscale? We can,
but I want to talk to Jean quickly about this tape, because she does talk about the way she views these immigrant separations that have been happening on the border, and the way these kids have been separated from their parents. She just views them as an irritant, it seems to me. And I know Jean's been to many of those camps and has covered this story for a while. And I was really interested in your perspective on all of that.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just absurd. She talks about how she doesn't understand why people get mad at the Trump administration for systematically separating children from their parents, because Obama did it too, which is completely, a distortion of reality. From my reporting for the book, it's clear that from January of 2017, Stephen Miller had written these executive orders that gave the Department of Homeland Security free rein to detain asylum seekers, regardless of whether they had prior criminal records. So they eliminated the system of prioritization that existed within the Department of Homeland Security under the Obama administration, where they tried to prioritize detaining people with, who had crossed illegally or who had committed serious crimes. And so they eliminated that. And this is why, even before they announced the zero tolerance policy, where they went after all families crossing the border illegally, even before that, you saw these systematic family separations where asylum seekers were not breaking any laws. They were presenting themselves legally at ports of entry. I spoke to one father from El Salvador who had his 1-year-old Mateo taken from his arms, and he was separated from him for 8 months without knowing where he was. Real trauma that was caused on purpose, because Stephen Miller thought that this performance of cruelty would deter further immigration from Central America, and he could achieve his goal of maintaining a white majority in the United States. So there was real systematic family separations that happened under the Trump administration that continue to happen today because of that executive order from January of 2017. Even though they, supposedly ended the policy, they're still happening. And
so, how long have these kids been kept for? You said 8 months in one case. What's the average length of time that these children are being separated from their parents?
Well, so it depends. I mean, during the formal zero tolerance policy, they were separated for several months at a time, up to a year in some cases. There were cases where more than 400 cases where the parents were deported without their children, and so the struggle to reunite them there, took even longer. But it's hard to quantify because there isn't anybody currently tracking these separations. There was, for a time, there was a time when the administration was scrambling to figure out where these separated parents and children were, and they were able to put hundreds of them back together. But the fact is that because the administration doesn't acknowledge that this is a continuing practice at the border, there are no real records of which children are being separated from their parents and how long that those separations are happening.
They also don't. They've never known the number, but they have children separated. But they have put out one number. They put out the
Yeah.
number 1,488 children separated. And anybody who understands the coded language, and it's not hard to understand this, of neo-Nazis and white supremacists knows what the number 1488 means. So they have taken this child separation policy, as well as just the whole, Stephen Miller's entire immigration policy, and weaponized it with the coded language and specifically the numbers. There's several instances of this coming out of, and it's coming out of HHS. And I was on a really hard hunt for, like, where did that number come from? I want to know, because it was given also to a committee. And no one on the committee, even the Democrats, weren't investigating, like, how did you come to this number? Where did this come from? This is a very specific number. This is not something that just gets generated out of, the odds are you're going to come up with a number like around 1,500 or something. It was very specific. And I could not get any answers. I couldn't get answers from committee members. I couldn't get answers from staff of where this number came from, only that it came out of HHS. And they couldn't even tell me who there. This was when Kristen Nielsen was also still running things. So a lot of that, as much as she tries after the fact that she's doing all this distancing and, trying to be a source for people. I don't
buy it with her at all.
Because good guys, if she was in there when this stuff was going on, and she's actually, when the first use of the 14 words, which is a neo-Nazi, and it's all about that whole mentality is about, we have to, breed more white babies to breed out the brown babies. It's coming out of that philosophy from a very prominent neo-Nazi that was in prison for a long time, and he crafted all this coded language.
So we don't know what the real number is either.
We don't know what the real number is. They just keep giving us the numbers that either are related to 14 words or 88, which is a symbol for Heil Hitler. So they just keep pushing those numbers at us.
It's going to be decades of us dealing with this, It's because what have we done to these children? It's just shocking what we've done to them for their entire lives. Jean, when was what is the update on that situation there? It sounds to me like it's just a continuing thing that people are just ignoring right now. There's so many other big stories.
I know. So now they're using the pandemic to just turn everyone away, including children who come here fleeing violence. They're just using it as an excuse to systematically tell everyone that that the United States is full and that we don't have any room for anyone. So they've effectively destroyed the asylum system as we know it at the U.S.-Mexico border. They've destroyed the refugee admission system. We're hitting new historic lows every year. We just hit the new historic low of 13,000 that we will be admitting next year. So this reputation that the United States had for a while across the globe of being a beacon of hope and refuge for people, including children, fleeing persecution has been deliberately destroyed by Stephen Miller and his allies within the Trump administration. And in part, as I show in the book, using policies that come directly from think tanks funded by eugenicists, by white supremacists who believe in population control for non-white people. The goal here has nothing to do with homeland security, even though they launder these white supremacist ideas through the language of heritage and national security. The goal is about re-engineering the ethnic flows into this country to keep Black and brown families out. And that is a fact. You look at the policies and where Stephen Miller is pulling them from, you look at the white nationalist and white supremacist literature that he is clearly sympathetic to based on his recommendations to his friends. And it's just clear as day that the motive here has everything to do with demographics, with race, with white supremacy.
That's right. She's right.
I have a question. And have you run into the group Numbers USA?
That's one of the groups that I'm talking about. The Federation for American Immigration Reform is the group of those three think tanks. There's Numbers USA, Federation for American Immigration Reform, and a Center for Immigration Studies. All of those were propped up by John Tanton, this eugenicist. But
Mhm.
FAIR, the Federation for American Immigration Reform, is the one that put out this blueprint for the Trump transition team on immigration policy in November of 2016, and Stephen Miller has adopted that almost verbatim in his policies.
Huh. Because they're for the readers for viewers at home who aren't familiar with John Tanton, who's passed on, no doubt to hell. His work and the policy work, it sounds more fringe than it actually is when you find out that they've been allowed a lot more influence,
A lot more power, a lot more influence.
I mean, I came across some of Tanton's work and some of it's being mainstreamed, and when I read some of the ideas, I'm like, so this is some holdover, in Argentina, right, who got out in 46 or thing. It's like, now this is right now, and they're getting grants and they're writing position papers, and pretty shocking stuff.
Exactly. I mean, they're used as sources frequently by media outlets looking for quote unquote balance. You interview a pro-immigration attorney, and then you interview one of these think tanks to get the anti-immigration side. And these are think tanks that are recognized as hate groups by the Southern Poverty Law Center because, of their clear hateful origins. But they've been able to worm their way into the mainstream, including, testifying before Congress as quote unquote experts, because of the way that they launder these ideas through this pseudo-intellectual narratives about how immigrants are allegedly a threat to American prosperity or American national security. And you look at the research and it shows the opposite. But these think tanks have been allowed to have a real say on policy. And it is partly why we are seeing the crises that we are seeing today in terms of public health, in terms of domestic terrorism, because this administration has completely turned a blind eye to the real threats that we face as Americans, and has, followed the path of white nationalists as far as what the policies are.
Yeah, I would argue it's even darker than that. I would argue it's darker than turning a blind eye. That they're really, if you get underneath the communication network and in the infosphere, if you look at how they're all coordinating their semantics, where they're coming from, what the think tanks, as you say, how they're working with the PR firms, how there's a chain of information flow that you can connect right underneath. It's Alex Gibney did a really great job. I haven't talked a lot about his documentary or docuseries that he's done about chaos agents or Agent Chaos.
Agents of Chaos.
Agents of Chaos, and how misinformation gets spread. But the thing to pay attention to also in what he shows is the architecture between blogs, think tanks, news wires, right? Yeah. How you can launder these ideas even into the discourse, how you can get it in there so people just start talking about it and not understanding who's behind it, where it comes from, and how coordinated it is. Everybody in this administration knows exactly how coordinated all of this is. There is no mystery to Stephen Miller or anyone else around him about where they get their ideas, how they launder their ideas, how they share their ideas, how they spread their ideas. Steve Bannon as well has been on this bandwagon for a very long time, much longer than anybody realizes.
There's an organization called
hijacking the conversation. It's just about this is it's propaganda, but it is for a specific aim, as all propaganda is. There is a very specific targeted aim for this sort of eugenics laced propaganda. And don't think the White House is just the commentary for me that gets frustrating is when folks cast Donald Trump like, well, maybe he knows who the Proud Boys are, but they're his followers and he doesn't like ever say anything bad about anybody who likes him. That is so wrong. I can't even tell you how off that is. It is such bullshit. He knows exactly there. It's not that he's afraid of upsetting the white supremacists. He knows who they are. He created half of these people. He's underneath even them. He's not just sitting there as a benefactor on the outside. He's fueling all this stuff. And the money behind him is the same money going into this shit, right?
Well, that's what I was going
So
to mention is the Atlas network, which is this Koch-funded thing that exists across the world, and it basically creates think tanks in different countries where they want to, introduce libertarian thinking, but it's not libertarian thinking; it's really white
very
nationalism.
Kremlin intelligence-y, is
Yeah,
it not?
and then
Derek?
they bring people into these think tanks, groom them for government, give them positions of
That's right.
influence in media, and then when they're ready, they flip them into the government. It's happened in Brazil, it's happened in a few places around the world, and they're a legit organization, and Nikki Haley has connections to them amongst others, and it's all Koch funded. So this is not just an accidental tripping over some followers that are causing trouble. This is an organized global effort to do this, and it's horrifying. Really, there's no other way to describe it.
Well, and now that they have access to an agency with an intelligence, or a department with an intelligence agency in it, and that's the Department of Homeland Security with INA, Intelligence and Analysis. One of the biggest scandals, I don't know if anyone could cover this enough, that the whistleblower from about a month ago, we're seeing the fruits of this, that INA was told by Trump's goons to cover up Russia's election interference, which we now know from Senator Chris Murphy. He's just started talking last night, a really important thread about that. That's so important because Russia's attacks on this democracy, they are way bigger in 2020 than they were in 2016, which makes sense because this is quite existential because they're caught. All their, these decades of these operations, whether they're domestic or foreign, doesn't really matter. That whole network of nasty is caught. So they are like a cornered animal right now. And you've got DHS that's covering up that, but they're also covering up the thing that Russian intelligence happens to also want on U.S. soil, which is civil war, that's violence. And they were told not to tell Congress of the threats of these various right-wing groups that the president is dog whistling to in a debate,
and covered up for Kyle Rittenhouse. I mean, they were just ordered to protect him in every way.
Not just covering up, supporting, saying, "Oh, we've got to raise sympathy for a 17-year-old taking an assault rifle and committing murder." We're through the licking grass. This is not even right-wing stuff. This is, and I think as radicalized, in a sincere way as many of these lost scumbags may have become, this is ultimately serving some even darker forces that just want to see the absolute worst in humanity come out in the United States, which remains the beacon. So, and
to destroy America. So Ratcliffe, you have some thoughts on him, I presume.
Well, we crossed a new barrier this week where who I call faux DNI. It's different than his predecessor, Tinder Spy, or Grindr DNI. Ratcliffe, who is one of the least qualified humans for anything, really, definitely Director of National Intelligence, crossed a new line and laundered in intelligence product saying maybe Hillary Clinton set up the investigation into Trump to catch him to frame him for Russia attacking her so that she could lose and he could win. Anyway, it's too
so
dumb
convoluted
to get
crazy,
into. Yeah. It's from the Russian intelligence services. So we have a director of national intelligence taking Russian intelligence product and giving it to our Congress.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
And people in the intelligence community saying that that's what it is. Who report to him. So you've got complete dysfunction.
He knew exactly what it was.
Yeah.
It's just like, hey, run with this.
And he's obviously being ordered to do it, and he's doing it, but it's every bit of trust that we've had in the intelligence community is being destroyed, because now what do we believe? And it comes back to
hold on. Let's not lose the fact that the intel agencies, who are not made up of these 6 to 15 political appointee scumbags that they put in as traitors, the agencies are fine for the most part. They have their long-time staff. They have not been able to subvert those. In fact, the dumbest thing you can try and do is subvert, an American intel agency on the quick and on the cheap, on home soil. It's not a bright idea. You've got, think of what the administrations they had to go through to get this guy into this position, this desperate act to get Ratcliffe in as DNI, where he doesn't have any real influence, but he can take a fistful of some documents that some idiot at the FSB came up with and give it to our Congress. That's not whether FBI counterintelligence is, intelligence project is good,
but the battle's for the hearts and minds of Americans. It's what Americans think that they want to mess with, and that does work. Because there are people who listen to Fox News and people listen to Breitbart, and that's where they get their information from. And so when Ratcliffe releases this conspiracy nonsense, they believe it. And truth, which is been a theme throughout this entire hour, where you've got no one even believing or being sure that the president is really sick. Maybe he isn't. Could be fatally sick. Who knows? It's just we don't even know that truth. Never mind whether the Hillary Clinton colluded against him or not, or whether the concentration camps exist and whether kids are being separated or how many of them are being separated. We've got, or whether coronavirus is real or not. I mean, there's people in America who think still that it is a hoax, and so you've got such a truth doesn't exist anymore. And that gets very tricky. I don't know how you. I don't even know. I know where you begin to build that back. How you build that back.
I feel like what's going to happen. Oh, go ahead, Eric.
I was just going to say, to loop this back around to the importance of the president getting sick. You're seeing this. There's some symmetry here. Is like this propagandist, because that's all he is, in addition to being a money launderer and a bad one. This propagandist said this thing that does exist. It's chunks of RNA. It's a virus. And viruses do not care about your PR plan or your manipulation on social media. They just replicate through cells. That's it. We're in a post-truth world. Not for viruses, we're not. And for viruses, we're in a fact-based world. If you got some RNA that I can combine with and replicate and it goes to the next cell, great, awesome. We're doing this. And there's no arguing about it. So we get the president who says, well, it's not really happening. Well, the RNA, the virus begs to differ. And to the point that it sickened him. So all the people that are part of the Trump train, if you will, they're going to have a lot of cognitive dissonance. And this is going to be an inflection point for them. Like, really, it doesn't exist. We're overreacting. Well, the president, who has the best health care available on earth, he can't stop getting sick. And Acosta, there was just an update from Jim Acosta that White House officials have serious concerns about Trump's condition tonight, and his symptoms are worse than those of the first lady at this point. This is getting real quick. And so for everybody that has been lulled in the sense of, oh, well, I can just turn on Fox News, I can log into my personalized Facebook feed of garbage, and it'll tell me what to think and what to say, so I'm in lockstep with the people that I've been told to team up with. That's gonna stop when you have major figures in the right-wing propaganda movement drop dead.
Yeah,
can't argue with that.
I think there's going to be a reckoning point, almost like, this is not a great analogy, but when there's a particularly destructive house party and it goes all into the backyard and this and that, and it's at night, and then everyone leaves and you wake up the next morning in the sunlight, and you can then only then see how much destruction has been wrought upon the property. I think we're going to come to that point, especially with the kids in the cages, because they've done a pretty good job, I think, of shutting that away and not letting people take photographs of it and look at it and report on it in an easy way. And I think that when we really step back and look at all of the shit that's happened, the lies that have been told, all of the documents, like the Zelensky transcripts that, remember, they had locked away all these things in the super secret server and all this, all that stuff's going to come
MBS
out.
Stuff still there too.
The MBS stuff, it's all going to come out, and it's going to be worse than even we think. And it's going to be horrifying. And at that point, where's the spin? Fox News is going to cease to exist because they have not reported on the news. And I think this is also an inflection point for Fox News, because their job is to report the fucking news. That's their job. And whether they want to do it with a bias or not, at the end of the day, there has to be a baseline of what is real and what isn't real. And if you're saying, and your talking heads are reporting that this is a hoax, it's a scam, it's bullshit, the mask thing is blah, 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 and your own guy is at Walter Reed possibly on the brink of death, I mean, how do you square that? You've been lying to the American people for the last 4 fucking years. You've been profiting off the lies. You've not been clear to people, even as the talking heads at Fox, Sean Hannity, who has hired Michael Cohen, right? Doesn't disclose that relationship. All this bad stuff. Not to mention, we haven't mentioned the Kimberly Guilfoyle and all the hostile work environment from hell that place seems to be.
I think Hope Hicks worked there for a while too.
Who?
Hope Hicks. I think she worked there for a little bit.
Yeah, she did. Well, they all did. It's a revolving door. They go there, they get their payday.
Yeah.
They get their payday. You know, they don't make enough money in the White House. They go to Fox, they get their payday. That's the reward for being shitty liars. And they're going to be exposed too, and that company is going to go to hell. And I can't wait till it does. I can't wait till it. By the way, one of those Murdoch brothers was near all those people at the
super spreader event.
Lachlan?
So yeah.
Lachlan
yes,
was
Lachlan.
there?
Lachlan
was
Oh, that's our favorite
there.
Nazi there. Oh,
Well, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
So,
yeah.
what
LB,
did they
is
say?
he our
Thoughts and
cupcake?
prayers, buddy. Thoughts and prayers, motherfucker.
What, Eric? What'd you ask?
Is he our cupcake? Is
He's
Lachlan
our
a
little
cupcake?
cupcake. He's our little cupcake. Yeah.
I did think
Wow.
that Biden today, I don't know if you saw his speech, and I know it was just his regular stump speech, but he sort of amended it a
It was
little bit. But
amazing.
he was really strong. He was really, really strong. And because Trump was basically not able to speak for a little bit, hearing what Biden would be like as president in this moment of crisis was really reassuring. I thought he gave a remarkable speech that really, and he was in the heartland. I can't remember exactly. It was Grand Rapids, I think he was at.
I think it
But he
was
was-
Michigan.
yeah.
Yeah. He talked about Detroit, I think.
Yeah, and he really,
Yeah.
he is talking directly to the men and women in the middle of this country, and he is going to surprise people, I think, on November 3rd with a huge victory amongst all white men. There's a distinction between white men who've been to college, have been in his column for a while, but the white men who haven't have stuck with Trump. But I think he is beginning to win them over, and you can sort of see it in the polls from state to state, where they were much closer before, and now they're not. It looks like Biden is really pulling ahead, and now Trump really has to win. He has to win Pennsylvania and a couple of other really hard to win places. Sorry, Trump has to win a couple of hard to win places to win. I think we're starting to see the tide really, really turn, and it's going to come in the same way that Boris Johnson was weirdly able to construct a victory for his election out of the blue collar workers of the UK. I think that there'll be a surprise part of the coalition come November 3rd. I think it's going to be a pretty broad-based American coalition that votes Trump out, no matter how much stunting he does, or if it's not stunting, no matter what happens in the next few days.
Well,
And
speaking of
I
Pennsylvania,
agree.
by
I
the
was
way,
watching Jean nod her head. So you had thoughts. Did you have thoughts there, Jean? No.
Oh, yeah. I just feel like this whole strategy of inciting fear is going to be a lot harder to, actually be effective this year, because people are just so exhausted and so afraid already. And they're looking for something else now. They're looking for hope. There's too much cognitive dissonance, as we were talking about earlier. It's just people want, they don't want to feel that fear anymore. And I think that Zev is absolutely right that we're going to see some surprise shifts for Biden.
And it's kind of like people are just if you can be over scared, I think we're all over scared. I think we're sort of, so when you're overtired, well, now I'm awake. So you keep going.
At some point, the nightmare is upon you. And I was having a talk with a friend last night about Nazi propaganda. What was going on when the Nazi propaganda took hold of that country and really roused it to success in the most awful of ways. Remember where Germany was in the 1930s. They'd been humiliated after World War I. They were under these terrible reparations. And, it was a lot less morally clear about the German responsibility for the war between Russia, France, England, and Germany. It wasn't as clear. about, as World War II was. So they're feeling really bad, and the place is a mess, and the Weimar Republic's coming apart. And the Nazi propaganda comes on and shows it's unrealistic. It's a lie, but it shows kind of a clean, totally, successful, organized German state. And if we can, and you demonize these people because the Nazis demonize because they're responsible for holding you back. So you get something positive to look forward. Trump's whole thing and this whole conspiracy thing has just been this Russian wet dream of just make America feel like it sucks and it's never going to get better. Here's the thing, like, if you want to, at some point that's going to run out and people are great, we suck. Well, we're resilient people. We're all, Greg, we talked about this couple 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think, about how we're all the children of the people from shithole countries who dragged here with very few, limited exceptions. Is like we all came here in disrepair, except for the Indians, and we're all fighting our way up, and that is something that people underestimate Americans at their peril. But this fear of like, well, something bad might happen. Well, I don't know. We got like 18% unemployment. We got 100 bankruptcies of retail shops a month. The plague is here, and we don't know who's going to be president tonight. I don't know. It's like Apollo 13. Well, what have we got on the ship that's good? All right, let's fix it. Let's make a new air filter out of some socks and an old notebook, right? And they did. They're like, fuck it. Well, all right, let's do something. And that's kind of where we're at. I mean, the place is, America's kind of fucked right now. Okay, great. We got that in our DNA. All right, what do we do next?
Exactly.
We're not going to just lay down. So see you Monday, guys.
Yeah. So now America's the underdog. Well, let's see what happens. Greg, any thoughts or questions or any other things that you want to throw at us?
Look, this is how batshit everything is. Okay, it's Friday. It's less than a week since the tax story came out in the New York Times.
Remember that?
We've been waiting for him to release for 4 years. It's been less than a week, and we are now exactly an hour into this, and it hasn't even come out.
Right, yeah.
That's how fucking bad it is, okay?
It's a lifetime ago.
Yeah. That's it. $750. It's, I don't know if it's going to save him now.
Well, really, I've got an investigation going on in that, and I think that there's a lot to still be found out in where that money is, because that money still is here. It's on this planet. It didn't leave this planet. It's someone has that money. He's got it somewhere. Somebody else has got it. I don't know, but it's still on this planet. He's not that bad a businessman. He's more just
I don't know about that.
He's a decent money launderer, probably, but if he's a bad businessman. LB, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think. Look, we have to now careen through this weekend, and everyone's even more unsettled. And we knew this was all coming. I just want to rewarn everybody to remind you, it's October. We knew it's just off the rails. It's going to be crazy, and there'll be this stuff that comes. I didn't have Trump gets COVID on my bingo card for October,
Right.
but it does change the whole game, right? And to a certain degree. But here's what's constant. What's constant is how we get to treat one another, right? With a lot of love and tenderness. I encourage everybody to be in that space, because always remember, we're getting agitated. Our brains are getting agitated. This is a time to really just, bring kindness, as much kindness as you can, to the forefront. And that doesn't mean to give up your resolve. This is a time of great resolve and great clarity. We're all still going to go vote. There's no stopping an election just because if this guy drops, right?
Nope.
So we're going to do that.
There is not.
And keep focused on the Senate. Remember that the whole ball game is actually the Senate. And I think we have a better shot than we've ever had at taking the Senate. It just keeps going, and that's really going in the right direction. And so we just have to make it through these next 4 weeks. We can do it by keeping our arms around one another, believing in one another, believing in the promise of this nation, and having incredible resolve. when it comes to what we actually can do and the power that is upon us. It's our moment now. It's been this motherfucker's moment for fucking 4 years, and before that, God knows that it's been the traitors' time. Now it's our time. We're gonna vote. It's our moment. So don't back away from our moment. Don't let them frighten you out of your moment. Don't let them depress you or scare you. I know everything's at 11. It's just going to be at 11, right? That's okay. That's all right. It's still our moment. It's still our time.